This is BarCode, a cocktail-powered podcast that dives deep into the personalities, criminals, and heroes that have come to define security across the globe. Please join our host, Glanden, for another wild foray into the incredible world of humans and how they intertwine with today's modern technology. We hope you enjoy today's episode.
Activate.
Mariano Mattei is VP of Cybersecurity and AI at Azure Solutions with over 30 years of software engineering experience. As a certified Chief Information Security Officer, he specializes in AI integration for advanced threat detection and predictive security measures within biotechnology, pharmaceuticals, and medical device sectors. He's the author of the forthcoming book, Security Metrics, a measurement-driven approach to cyber risk reduction, as well as an established filmmaker. Mariano, thanks for stopping by BarCode.
Thanks, Chris. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, definitely. We have a lot to catch up on.
Yeah.
But for the listeners that don't know you, if you don't mind, talk me through your background and,
Sure.
What ultimately led you into a cybersecurity career.
Yeah, it's an interesting career. Graduated way back from Temple University in software engineering. So I got out of college and started working for Navy radar and missile guidance system programming. So it was really exciting. I did that for about 5 years and then went private and hooked up with a great company called SoftSwitch. And they eventually got bought out by Lotus, which eventually got bought out by IBM. So the majority of my career was with IBM. And then we segued from software engineering to managing what we called the SWAT team, which was a global team of highly specialized problem solution people who could handle high stress situations. So SWAT is exactly what it sounds like. No one else can find or fix the problem. IBM says, get boots on the ground. I fly myself or one of my people out on site. Everybody's mad. Nothing is working. Everything's on fire. And you have to take control of the situation to find and fix the problem, whether it was IBM software or not. So what was interesting was I got really good at reading sniffer traces using Wireshark. And that's when the light bulb went off about 15, 20 years ago. And I said, cybersecurity is the next big thing. We found maybe 80% of our problems by doing that. And a lot of it ended up being something malicious. So when that light bulb went off, I went straight forward into cybersecurity. So I've been doing consulting for the last 15, 20 years as basically a virtual CISO for companies, sometimes as a data privacy officer as well. And it's more than just strategic recommendations. I mean, I like to get my hands dirty. I still code. I still do a lot of AI innovation. So it's a great time to be in cyber and AI and have that coding experience as a background. So
yeah, definitely. And I think that technical expertise and that technical passion never really leaves you. So it's hard to escape that. So being a consultant, being a VC, so I'm sure that that security teams often struggle to communicate risk effectively to that C-suite or to the executive level. And I believe, that metrics can help bridge that gap, but those metrics are frequently misused or misunderstood. So from your perspective, as someone who has, written a book on this and has researched it, talk to me a little bit about how security leaders can ensure they're using metrics to drive decisions rather than just, generating that nice looking PDF.
Yeah, I mean, I like the nice looking PDFs, but the whole reason why I decided to write this book was I work with a lot of companies and I was surprised to find that I think I ran across 2 that collect metrics and report on them. And the thought was you would never go to a board meeting and not have your CFO put up slides that show exactly financially how the company is doing. I mean, they would be fired, right? So why aren't cybersecurity professionals doing something similar? You have most of the data is already there. And I tell people this all the time. Start with the metrics you already have. You already have numbers. Now you're not going to use those numbers to tell a story. I mean, it just seemed insane to me. So I started doing research. I said, there's got to be a book, something on this out there. And there wasn't. I mean, there's a lot of really good books on how to measure cybersecurity, how to measure anything, a lot of technical, mathematical books. There's evaluating using, risk using FAIR, for example.
Yep.
All of those were great, but there was nothing that just, you know me, because we've been going to conferences together for some time now. I tend to just like to talk normal. I don't want to talk too technical. I could talk to the engineering team. I could talk to the development team. I could talk to the network analyst. But, to put it in plain language for the C level, for the board level, collect metrics that help tie back into the business to show or tell a story, and that's the important thing.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason why I came up with the idea for the book originally.
Yeah, and I definitely want to talk more about that. But I think, teams that there is metrics there, right? There is metrics. It's just sometimes it's not, there's no substance there, right? So
Yeah.
with those metrics that they do include, are you finding that organizations rely on some metrics that just aren't actually useful at the end of the day? How could security teams focus on metrics that truly matter and make a difference?
Yeah, that's really the hard part, right? That's the hard. How do you know what you're collecting is really tying back into the business, which goes to the question, do you really know what business you're in?
Mm,
I remember someone told me at a conference, they said, if you know what makes your company money, if you really understand what makes the profit in your company, you're golden. You've got job security. And everything you do should be towards that goal. So it's very, very similar when you're collecting metrics, not to collect metrics for the sake of collecting metrics.
yeah.
How does each one of those metrics tie back into a business function that makes money for the company? And that's the hard part. Now, I've been on job interviews where I've had a CISO ask me, oh, he found out I was writing a book. He interrupted me. He says, oh, what's your top 10 metrics? I said, I don't have a top 10. He didn't like the answer. I didn't get the job offer. But I don't have a top 10. You have a top 10. Your company has a top 10.
Yeah.
Do you know what your top 10 is? Because you should, And
Yeah.
so it's not just about collecting metrics and reporting on metrics, but it's what are the ones that are really going to help the business.
Yeah. And I love that because there's no straightforward answer because those metrics could vary, right? They're
Yeah, giving
variable.
you the standard CISO.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. They hate to hear that, but I mean, it's the truth. So unlike financial and operational metrics, security metrics are often difficult to quantify because often security is perceived as a preventative line of business rather than producing tangible outputs. So, in your opinion, what are some of the biggest challenges organizations face when trying to quantify their security effectiveness, and how can they overcome those challenges?
Yeah, I think one of the keys here is relationships and communication. So, for example, most often the CISO would report into the CIO. And regardless of if it's the CIO, once in a while it's the CFO. And quite frankly, I would prefer the CFO because now you can talk the language that the business understands. So they have all the numbers, right? Your CIO may have the numbers for their specific department, of which is usually IT, of which cybersecurity is usually a percentage budgeted of IT expenses. And there are gray lines, right? So how do you really substantiate if you want to talk in terms of numbers, which I think is where you should end up? if you're doing a report for the C level or the board level, is talking financial terms, right? How do you translate that into financial terms? So how much is, for example, the data that you're protecting? How much is your code worth if it's a code base? I mean, you should be able to talk to someone who knows these numbers and can get you these figures. Because then you could say, well, it makes sense that we're spending $300,000 a year on cyber to protect what is worth $2 billion, right? That tells a story.
Yeah.
Look how little we're spending to protect something that's worth a lot. And so sooner or later, there's a lot of stories you could tell to different people with cybersecurity metrics, but if you're going for that C-level, board level, you have to somehow end up translating that into dollars.
I agree, man. I think the way that security teams, build metrics that resonate with C-level, whether it's CEO, CFO, you have to, tell a narrative that resonates with them. So
Yeah.
we all know how fast the threat landscape is evolving right now, especially with you being involved with AI and seeing how, the AI fueled threats are becoming even more aggressive. So sometimes a metric that was relevant a year ago may no longer be meaningful. In this circumstance, how should organizations adapt their security metrics to keep up with those emerging threats and those constant changes in technology?
Yeah, that's the difficult part in this in general, even prior to generative AI hitting the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know this, having been in the field for quite some time, it is constantly changing. So it's always this cat and mouse game of, how can we better defend? What new, technologies are out that can be used for both good and bad purposes? I think that Gen AI and agentic AI is really going to create some new metrics. So, which is great for me because I'll have a second book coming out, right, in a year or two. But
There you go.
it's changing so fast right now. I do a lot in AI, do a lot of coding with AI. I've created pen test assistants using AI. Phenomenal, scary good. So, how are we going to start being able to measure that? I mean, that's the greenfield opportunity right there, right? Is trying to figure out how it's changing and what should we be looking at? What should we be measuring?
Yeah. And how those attacks are coming in too, right? Because a lot of times you're just going to get hit with an attack, but um, that's what you see, and that's what you're
Yeah.
putting metrics
Yeah.
against. But I agree with you. I think you always have to evaluate, those different attack vectors.
The types of attacks are changing, right? You
Yeah.
have your voice now, which is easily duplicated via AI. Video is getting there as well. So there's a lot of social engineering type of attacks that have increased, over just the last few months. We're seeing more and more of it. So how do you measure that? That's a great question. I always tell companies to track the incidents. So you have to track what's coming in, make a report on it, do your forensics, document everything. It's kind of a pain, but at the end of the day, it'll start telling you a story. It'll start painting a picture for you. Where are these attacks coming in? And then now where can we focus our defenses?
Yeah. And we talked about this storytelling, right? And security leaders applying storytelling techniques. And I think you do that very well. And part of that is because you're also a filmmaker as well.
Yeah.
Did you get into security while you were filmmaking, or how did that happen?
Yeah. So, it took me a really long time to find out that I guess I'm a creative type. So programming was another form of creation. I was a musician for many, many years before becoming a filmmaker. And so all of it really ties back into this. I have a creative side to my personality, whether it's, a good problem to solve in coding or in a company or in cyber or in AI or music or film, that if I don't do something creative, if my mind doesn't work that way, if you're a creative, this, you can't just give it up, right? You start getting depressed, you start feeling like something's missing in your life. So I need the drive. I need to constantly create something. And it ties right back into what I do for a living. So, would I love to be able to be a musician or a filmmaker full time? I would love it, but it doesn't pay the bills, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So
You and
you
I are in the same situation.
make the money to feed your family and yourself, but also to fund, your creative side too,
Yeah. I think creativity in this industry is so important from many different aspects. I don't like to discourage people that don't feel like they're creative, because I think everybody has some level of creativity in what they do.
Yeah, I
Um,
hear that a lot, and I see it as well, and I'm like, well, you do this, and that's
mhm.
creative. Like there is usually something, most people that don't think that they're creative because they don't paint, they're not doing like the typical, right, artistic endeavors. There are other forms of creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I encourage everybody just to exercise that creativity. I think that's how we evolve as an industry. That's how you evolve as a person. And yeah, not everyone's going to have that same level of maybe a musical ability or storytelling ability, but there's
Yeah.
the goal is to start thinking differently, right? And I think that's the end game for what I would like to see. Because again, that's how we're going to push the limits of what we do.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about, that came about from everybody working from home is you get to see their surroundings, right? So whenever
Yeah.
I'm on a meeting, I'll see, hey, what kind of guitar is that in the background? So it's surprising to see how many people actually do have that musician or painting or some kind of creative, and they're in the IT field.
Yeah.
Because I think it goes hand in hand.
I do too. I do too. Since I got into this industry, I've ran into many musicians. And you would never know. Like
Right.
you said, in COVID, you would find out then. But yeah,
In the
like
office, you don't see it.
yeah, yeah. Right. But I mean, I think it's important to talk about those things. A lot of people will sort of mentally isolate themselves and their creativity from work. And I think there's a fine line there where you can, bring that in, and it will help your career.
Yeah, I could tell you I've run a lot of workshops for AI innovation or innovation in and of itself. And one of the methodologies I use is the Disney Creative Method. So if you're not familiar with it, look it up. But it's phenomenal at really pulling out from teams. How can you innovate using AI? How can you make something you have better? How can you create something new? How can you differentiate yourself, from your competitors? I mean, I love doing those workshops and using that creative method to do it because it really gets, everybody's mind thinking in a different way, and they start tapping into that creative side. So it's fascinating, but I think it's creativity and this line of work go hand in hand.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to look that up. So Mariano, where can our audience members that are listening to this find you online? And then also, is there a website that you can point people to watch your films or to order your book?
Yeah, I mean, I could provide you with links, but basically to connect with me, I would just go to LinkedIn. You just find me Mariano-A-Mattei. So we are in the midst of a possible title change, which I am happy about.
Okay.
My original title for the book was CISO by the Numbers, because I felt that really told the story.
I like that.
Um, but they didn't like it, so we went with security metrics, which quite frankly is very boring and sounds like why would you want to read a book called Security Metrics, right? But we, some of the feedback from all of the rounds that we've done and releasing the book early. If you go to that link, it'll take you to the early access program. Was that the title really does not sell what's in the book, and so we're going through a title change process now. So hopefully we'll come up with something a little bit better. Maybe not CISO by the numbers, but something that has a better, more intriguing title. And then lastly, I mean, 4 Hours Productions is the main website, but our latest Sacrum Vindicte is the latest release that's out on Amazon Prime. The original one is on Tubi. So we released one about a year ago. Two is just released around the holiday season on Amazon Prime. And then after a little while, it'll be released on Tubi and all the other streaming platforms. And we're starting to shoot in 2 weeks the third and final chapter of this action revenge thriller seeking type film. We're going to start shooting that in a couple weeks.
Nice, man.
So
If you need an extra, hit me up.
we do. So here's Sakram. You can find links to Amazon for 1 and 2 on there, and Tubi. You can watch it for free. 4 Hours Productions is the production company. Yeah, so that's how you can find me. With just a little bit of what I do.
Yeah, yeah.
There's more to it.
So what's next for you? I mean, you're in the Philly area like I am. What do you have on tap?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully the book is finalized and out in print in about a month. You know, if people purchase it early, that really helps me out to get them to release it sooner rather than later. You know, continue doing film, continue working, making money for my family, and you know, trying to have a great time while I'm doing all of this. You know,
Love it.
trying to get. I've gotten some, so I'll be speaking on a panel for Secure World coming up in April. So I love, you know, I love getting up on stage. So getting me back to my band days. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But it's a good time to be in this industry, as you know. So
Yeah. I'll be at Secure World as well.
oh, great.
And like you mentioned before, we've run into to each other at AI conferences, at security conferences, happy hours. You know, I'm curious, from being in Philly, what's your favorite bar there?
Oh, good question. I usually like the little neighborhood bar. So when I lived in South Philly, I moved out to Swarthmore not too long ago. They have some good places here like Santino's and Stinger's. But I like those little dive bars that have really good food because I'm a foodie. So I'm a cook. I don't know if I told you this, but I was on Cooks versus Cons season 1, episode 11.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm a big time cook as well. But there's a little bar called Tap Room on 19th that I used to go to. I used to walk right around the corner. But the chef there really, every time you go to the bar, every week, the menu changed. And that's what I love because then you could really try different things and the food was phenomenal and the drinks were phenomenal.
Yeah. Is that
Yeah.
place still there?
Yeah, it's still there. The
Okay.
owner left. I think he might have moved to Costa Rica. But he opened up a Mike's Barbecue shop near Passyunk Avenue. Phenomenal barbecue. And
Nice.
then I think he ended up moving. So
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to go
yeah,
check that out.
yeah.
I'm a foodie too, so I'll
Yeah.
I'll I'll drive to get some good food.
The Royal Tavern in South Philadelphia on like 7th Street used to have great. I haven't been there in about a year or so, but they used to have the best burger in town.
Okay,
Big
interesting.
burger guy. So yeah.
Okay, Mariano, I just heard last call. You got time for one more? If you opened a cybersecurity themed bar, what would the name be and what would your signature drink be called?
I think I would have a drink called Zero Day.
Okay.
And every time you order it, it's a different drink.
Oh, yeah.
Like a theme, like that changes
Yeah.
weekly. Because right? That would coincide with what a 0-day exploit
Yeah.
is.
And it
Yeah.
will take you down.
Should be very strong. You should have a limit of 2 only per
2 only.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you got to call the IR team to
Yeah,
take you home.
that'd be funny.
All right, man. Well, thanks for stopping by. It was great seeing you. I'll see you again soon. And yeah,
I'll
you
see
take
you out
care.
there. Yeah, absolutely.